"You don't touch the flag," said the tomb guard in a low voice that cut through the airport noise like a knife. The manager's hand hovered over the stars and stripes on the casket, and travelers stopped and put their phones down. People in the crowd saw it as simply another problem in a busy terminal, a delay. Sergeant Samuel Harper said that no one crossed the border, not for ease or schedules. Harper's stand made a blood oath under a desert sky, but neither the manager nor the others watching understood this, and the soldier in that casket had saved his life. The real shock, though, was on the horizon. It was a general with stripes who was already on his way to make things right. Before we go on with this great story, please remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let us know where in the world you are watching this from in the comments section. It will be really helpful. People are lining up at the gates of the International Airport in Washington, D.C., while announcements are made over the loudspeakers. One man stayed still. Sergeant Samuel Harper, the nameless soldier buried in Arlington, wore his uniform like a promise. The tomb guard's insignia shone on his breast, and his shoes were so clean that they seemed like mirrors. His eyes were concentrated, and his demeanor was calm, but there was a heaviness in his heart that was hidden by the black and red of his outfit. Today he had to take a fallen brother home, not to the grave but right here in the middle of all the chaos. Private First Class Daniel Walsh, who was only 25 years old, had promised Sam, told him stories about home, and joked with him under the stars in the desert. "Bring me home right if I don't make it." That promise came true 3 days ago. Danny was killed in the Middle East while on a secret operation. Sam wouldn't let him down since his casket, covered in a flag, was waiting for him on the tarmac. He accomplished all of this today in honor of Danny, the baseball-loving boy who wanted to fly planes and died trying to protect his team. Maggie, as her friends called her, was standing across the terminal with her granddaughter Emma. Maggie, who was 70 years old, looked like a military nurse who had seen too many wars from Vietnam to now. Danny, her kid, was the source of her pride and light. She held Emma's little hand and waited to say goodbye. Emma, who was 10 years old, looked up with wide eyes. She asked, "Grandma, is that Danny's plane?" in a soft but firm voice. Maggie nodded, but her throat was too tight to speak. She had sent her husband and child to war. She was here to take him home now, but not everyone knew how important this time was. James Thornton, the airport's operations manager, was in an office with a view of the terminal. He was staring at his tablet and tapping his fingers anxiously. He was fascinated with and proud of the fact that 98% of the time he left on time. Digital screens kept track of planes, gates, and delays, and framed plaques on the walls showed off the airport's efficiency awards. Going through the main concourse as part of a military parade, he couldn't afford that trouble at all. He told Sarah, his worker, "We can't have this. Why didn't you tell me sooner? There are service corridors for a reason. Get it rerouted." Sarah coughed, as Thornton answered, "Sir, the airport director approved the main concourse route." His jaw tightened. He exclaimed, "This airport runs on precision, not pageantry," immediately counting how many minutes were lost in the 2:30 rush hour. During that time, there were 19 departures. Delays cost a lot. Sam stood still as a rock on the glossy floors of the arrivals hall. Tourists rushed past, some stopping to take pictures of his eye-catching clothes. Some people are too busy to pay attention. He thought of the commanding officer's office from 3 days ago. The letterhead was folded. The words made his stomach drop. Private First Class Daniel Walsh died in the line of duty. The next step is the task. "Sergeant, you've been chosen to be his escort. Take him home." The picture in Sam's breast pocket was soft from being handled for years and rubbed on his fingers. It showed him and Danny smiling and hugging one another under a desert moon. They were very different people who met in basic training. Danny had a big heart and was eager to laugh and do anything. Sam was the compass because he was always steady and thought things through. Danny's voice would cut through the darkness with the words, "You think too much, Sam." As time went on, their rivalry turned into respect and then into a brotherhood that was forged in the heat of battle. You just feel it sometimes. They had been tested in Afghanistan. Danny's laughing in the barracks was both a lifeline and a way to deal with the tension. In the background, Sam watched and made plans. One peaceful night when the stars were beaming over their outpost, Danny said to Sam, "You're my compass. I lead the charge, but you make sure we're going the right way." Sam had made those words a part of who he was. Their third tour altered everything. A sudden, terrible ambush. "Fire!" Danny's voice yelled. He tackled Sam to the ground and yelled, "Sam, on your left," as bullets sprayed through the air. In 3 seconds, Sam's life was saved. Thanks, that's what brothers do, Danny said as the medics wrapped them up that night, but there was a new color in his eyes, a hint of death. Danny kept talking about his mother Maggie, who had sent him care packages, and his younger sister Emma, who had sent Uncle Danny the hero crayon pictures. Even after a few months, he kept her art in his helmet to protect it from the darkness. The night before his last mission, everyone outside their barracks felt a sense of foreboding. Sam nodded as the promise settled on him. Danny's usual smile was gone when he said, "If anything happens, bring me home the right way. Full honors through the main concourse, not some back exit. Dad would have wanted it done right. I'll make sure of it, Danny, no matter what." 3 days later, the news came. Danny had not returned. There were few classified details given. Sam was alone in the barracks with the picture in his palm. The promise was no longer just a thought. It was a duty. As the cargo jet taxied closer at the airport, that promise burned in his chest. The airplane door opened with a mechanical hiss, and the honor guard came out, moving with purpose and accuracy. The flag-draped casket stood out against the gray of the terminal at Stars and Stripes. The ground crew pulled off their hats and bent their heads. Sam stood close to the casket, and his red suit of fire stood out against the cold, efficient surroundings. James Thornton walked inside the terminal with a clipboard in his hand like a shield. As they hurried to the arrivals hall, he told his workers, "We'll use the service corridors." Sarah, the young security guard, stopped for a moment before saying, "It's efficient. It won't bother thousands of passengers. The military can have their ceremony at the cemetery." Thornton waved her away and said, "But sir, the director approved the main route. I'm in charge of this terminal. We don't stop for parades." The march was dignified and measured at every step, even while the environment around it was moving quickly. Travelers slowed down when they sensed something valuable. An older man politely nodded. Teenagers talked to each other in low voices. A businessman stopped, surprised by what he saw, and looked at his watch. Sam stayed calm, but the photo in his pocket kept him grounded. This had to do with Danny and a debt that went past deadlines. Before the procession got to the airport doors, Thornton showed there. "Sergeant," he said in a low voice. He opened a map and pointed to a line that was emphasized. "I've made an alternate route," he said. "These service corridors go straight to the pickup area. It's faster." Sam's response was quick and unwavering. "This is Private First Class Daniel Walsh of the United States Army. We will go through the main terminal as planned, at the right speed for escorting the dead." Thornton's voice was more direct. "These hallways were made for movements that shouldn't get in the way of work. Shouldn't disrupt," Sam said again, this time with hardened eyes. Thornton made fun of the map by stating, "Private Walsh will be escorted with full honors through the main terminal. There's a service elevator to the loading area. You'd avoid delaying thousands of passengers," Sam said in a stern voice. "The disruption is only temporary." Thornton lost his cool when he said, "The dishonor of sneaking through back corridors would be permanent." He pointed to Sarah. Sarah stepped up with her hand on her radio, but when she saw the casket and the flag reflecting sunshine from a nearby window, she remarked, "This is ridiculous. Airport rules take precedence over your parade." She let her hand drop. "Is there a problem?" she asked. "Yes," Thornton screamed. Sarah looked at the casket and then at the crowd of people before saying, "We need this procession to go a different way for operational reasons." "Sir, the director approved this route." Thornton became red. He said, "I don't see an operational problem that would require a change. I'm in charge of this terminal. These delays affect the whole system." There were more people in the audience. Their silence was a safe place of respect in the crowded terminal. An old man named George Miller, who was wearing a USMC cap, came up. In a rough yet clear voice, he said, "I served in Vietnam." The audience echoed his words. "I lost brothers who never came home. This soldier deserves better than a back hallway." A businessman placed his phone away. A mother whispered to her curious toddler. A flight attendant stopped in the middle of the step. As Emma stepped forward, she held Maggie Walsh's hand tightly. "My Danny," Maggie shouted in a strong but shaky voice. The terminal got silent as her words sank in. "He loved baseball. He wanted to fly planes. He died saving his squad. He deserves this honor." Thornton didn't care and continued on, raising his hand to stop the parade. "Sergeant, I'm telling you to change course." Sam's eyes stayed the same. He said, "There are rules that are older than your airport." When Thornton's fingers reached the edge of the flag, the cloth rippled. "They decide how we honor those who gave everything. Lieutenant Walsh died serving his country in front of the whole world. He will not be hidden in death. The crowd gasped. Time seemed to break down. Sam's hand curled around Thornton's wrist gently but firmly as he moved with perfect accuracy. "Don't touch the flag," he said in a voice that was just above a whisper. Still, it went through the quiet terminal. The statements were based on centuries of military honor and were absolutely true. Thornton's face went from shocked to angry. "Get your hands off me," he yelled. The crowd went quiet as the speaker continued. "This is assault. I'll have security take you out." George Miller pulled off his hat and put it over his chest. An asper of the airline wiped away a tear. A businessman turned off his computer. Thornton didn't realize that touching the flag was more than just a mistake. It was an insult to Danny, his family, and all the soldiers who had served. Sam held Thornton's wrist for 3 seconds with a blank look on his face before releasing go. The veterans in the crowd knew that his calmness disguised a lot of anger and betrayal. "The flag stands for a soldier's dedication." Sam kept his voice steady, even though there was a lot of emotion behind it. "No one outside the honor guard is allowed to touch the ideas they stood up for, or the sacrifice they made." Thornton touched his wrist with a hint of defiance. He replied in a lower voice, "This is my terminal. I decide how soldiers can protect the flag and casket from being desecrated." Sam cut in with a last tone, as he added, "Our actions are guided by protocols older than your position or this airport." The crowd's respect grew. It was as if the terminal had become a holy place, and many travelers stopped and bowed their heads. From the edge of the crowd, a small voice murmured, "That's Danny's flag." Emma Walsh, who was sitting in her grandmother's lap, pointed at the coffin and said something that broke the tension. Maggie hugged her closer, her old face showing both pride and pain. Her eyes met Sam's in a nonverbal acknowledgement of their shared sadness. Captain Evelyn Carter, a former Army officer, cautiously walked up to the airport. She acted like a soldier, even though she was wearing civilian clothes. She took in the scene, the casket at the center of this unexpected fight, Thornton standing awkwardly, and the honor guard in formation. When she turned to Sam, her voice became softer. "Mr. Thornton," she said in a low but strong voice, "step aside. Sergeant, I'm sorry. Your procession will go through the main terminal as planned." Thorne started to object with his clipboard in hand, but Carter stopped him with a hand. She understood what Thornton didn't, that sometimes are more important than numbers, and that traditions have meaning that can't be measured by efficiency statistics. She removed the microphone from the terminal, and her voice echoed through the big room. "Please pay attention, ladies and gentlemen. Today, a fallen soldier is being escorted through our terminal. We ask that you join us in making a corridor of honor for his final journey home." The terminal was different. People who had been rushing to the gates stopped and moved slowly to the edges of the concourse. Businessmen turned off their laptops in the middle of an email. Parents were grumbling about sacrifice as they brought their kids together. Airport workers lined up and left their places along the way. The busy terminal became a sad place. A businessman was now standing with his head down after grumbling about delays. A teenage girl put her phone in her pocket with knowing eyes. George Miller stood up straight and saluted with his hand. An old man in a wheelchair rose up with the help of his wife. His shaking hand touched his forehead. The procession started up again, with Sam in front and the flag glowing brightly through the Hall of Reverence. There was no phone call and no talking. Even the announcement from the terminal seemed to make the building hold its breath. Sam's face stayed the same, but his eyes lit up as he realized that his stand had made people feel strongly. He gazed over the crowd at Maggie. There was no need for words. In one look you could see a promise kept, an honor cherished, and a sacrifice recognized. Maggie gave one nod to show that she understood what a soldier said from one generation to the next. The hearse was parked outside, and the black paint shone in the sun. The honor guard delicately deposited Danny's casket on the tarmac, where the flag still looked bright. Emma and Maggie came over, and Emma had a daisy with her. Even though Maggie was very old, she held Sam's hand tightly. "You kept your promise, Sam," she whispered, without letting the tears fall. Sam pulled up the old picture of him and Danny laughing under a desert moon. He pushed it into her hand. Emma put the flower on the casket and whispered, "For you, Maggie, for Emma." Then she broke the silence by saying in a small voice, "You're my hero, Danny." People stood in silence from a distance to remember, while others wiped away their tears. Thornton stepped over to his clipboard with his head down. He murmured, "Sergeant, I was wrong," in a voice that was nearly too quiet to hear. "I didn't get it." Sam looked him in the eye and nodded silently to say he was sorry. Danny was taken on his last journey to Arlington as the hearse drove away. Even though the situation was really serious, Sam kept his position and salute until the car was gone. What began as a bureaucratic deadlock had turned into something important, a reminder that some traditions exist because they help us honor sacrifice. That night, Sam walked back to the tomb of the unknown soldier. He walked 21 steps, turned, stopped, and then walked 21 more steps under a sky full with stars. The wind carried the weight of his promise as a reminder that some promises last. In a world that moves quickly, some people stop to honor those who gave their lives. We should respect them by having the courage to speak up for what is right, not just by being quiet. For Danny, all the warriors who never came home, and all those who keep their promises no matter what. This is the story of a soldier who died, and a tomb guard at a busy airport in Washington, D.C. It is also the story of a photograph and a promise that lasted. At the tomb of the unknown soldier, where every step is measured and every salute is sacred, it reminds us that the finest way to commemorate the dead is to stand up for their honor. So, take a break today. Think about Danny, Sam, and the other heroes whose names we don't say out loud. Tell their narrative to honor them, and remind us all that duty is more than just doing something, it's also in the heart. If you're in Arlington, you can also stand in front of the grave, listen, and watch the guard walk steadily. You might be able to hear the heartbeat of a country that is strong and doesn't give up even when it has to make sacrifices.